We are kicking off with AJ Styles, whose return on the October 4th SmackDown turned tragic when he suffered an injury, bringing an abrupt end to his match with Carmelo Hayes. Given it happened the same night as his return, some have questioned if this is an angle, and on Twitter this week, Styles addressed such a fan who suspects he wasn't really injured. AJ explained that the injury is a Lisfranc injury, and that he feared the worst when he was able to remove his boot after the match. He stated, "It's called a Lisfranc injury. Look it up. It sucks. I thought when I took off my boot, I would have a bone sticking out of my foot." Styles also responded to another fan who brought up that this injury sidelined NFL star Cam Newton in 2016 and tried to make light of the situation with some youth lingo. He said, "Bingo. As the kids say, I'm cooked." Brian Alvarez reported that Styles was frustrated with the situation as he was planning to start a storyline for a farewell tour or a retirement tease before this setback. While this plan is still in place, it will depend on the results of Styles' upcoming MRI, which will reveal how serious this injury is, but he will certainly require time off. According to the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, minor injuries may not need surgery, but will still require the sufferer to spend 6 to 8 weeks recovering. If surgery is needed, then it may be months before we see AJ in the ring again, and the report adds that resuming all activities takes up to 1 year in some patients. However long it takes for him to return, this situation simply doesn't look good for the Phenomenal One, so we'll have to see how long he'll be on the shelf due to the injury. Do you feel AJ Styles' injury might be worse than expected after what he just said? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Given what transpired at WWE Bad Blood, Goldberg vs. Gunther is a very definitive direction WWE is going in, and now a new report has come out about that match and when it could happen. During a live Q&A with Bill Apter and WrestleVotes, host Joe Lowry asked WrestleVotes about what WWE has planned after the tease earlier this month in Atlanta. WrestleVotes stated that not only was everything planned shortly before Bad Blood, but there could be plans for an angle at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia on November 2nd. Once that happens, it'll lead to a match at Survivor Series 2024, which will mark 8 years since Goldberg made his in-ring return, which proved to be a massive success. Now the circumstances are completely different, as some had speculated that this match would happen down the line, particularly during the Saudi show in May. If the match at Survivor Series happens, then Goldberg could be in store for a hostile reaction given that the show will be in Canada, which is of course favorable to Bret Hart. But what do you think? If this is Goldberg's final match, who should go over? Will a win for Gunther affect his momentum? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. In a backstage segment on Raw, Damian Priest said he'd be around to help Rhea Ripley if she needed it, but said his future focus is on becoming World Heavyweight Champion again. On Twitter, Priest made his point even clearer as he shared a gif of himself with the gold, a title he lost in controversial fashion thanks to Finn Balor's interference at SummerSlam. In the same live Q&A, WrestleVotes was asked for an update on WrestleMania 41 and the reports of a triple threat match between Cody Rhodes, The Rock, and Roman Reigns. According to the report, as things stand, this is indeed the plan, with all three parties being okay with this direction, which could be the main event of WrestleMania Sunday on April 20th. Back in May, it was reported that the plan was for Rhodes vs. Rock one-on-one, but that has changed, and we'll have to see who stands tall in Las Vegas, Nevada next April. As we mentioned in yesterday's video, there were multiple references to Brock Lesnar on Raw, despite it being over a year since fans last saw him in the ring. Both Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins made reference to facing and beating the Beast in the past, and this left some speculating that his return could be in the works. The speculation about Lesnar grew so much that Brock's name ended up trending on Twitter, with some even suggesting a return in next year's Men's Royal Rumble match could be the plan. That hasn't been confirmed by WWE, who has avoided using Lesnar due to his name being tied to Janelle Grant's lawsuit in which she alleges she was trafficked by higher-ups in WWE. Grant alleges that she was trafficked to Lesnar in order to get him to sign a new deal with WWE, and his removal from TV led to plans being nixed for a match with Gunther at WrestleMania. After WrestleMania, Triple H said that Lesnar was not gone from WWE but was home being Brock, and told MailSport in July that he'd be open to a conversation about Brock returning. Do you think a return in the Royal Rumble is coming? What kind of response should WWE expect if it does? Who should Brock feud with after the Rumble? Let us know down below. Over to NXT, which kicked off with the introduction of a new set as well as a new North American champion, Tony D'Angelo, who was already in the ring. Despite winning the gold from Obafemi, D'Angelo had nothing but good things to say about the Nigerian star, giving him his flowers for being a great champion. With wine in hand, the Don raised a toast to Femi, who then interrupted his speech and vowed to regain the title at Halloween Havoc. Before he left, Femi said that D'Angelo's family will not be by his side to help him, and then spun the wheel to make the deal, which landed on tables, ladders, and scares. This wasn't a long promo, but it was a simple and effective follow-up from last week, and D'Angelo spoke with confidence, perhaps taunting Femi a little too much. The ruler said his own confident statement, promising to take his title back, and while neither man is the typical type of competitor in a TLC match, they have proven chemistry. They've also varied it up with each match, and it remains to be seen how the pair do at Halloween Havoc, and if Femi will get the title back in this wild match stipulation. Are you here for Tony D'Angelo's run as NXT North American Champion? Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. Stephanie Vaquer made her in-ring televised debut this week against Wren Sinclair with a solid red lighting presentation for her entrance. While this was good, her new WWE theme sounded very generic, and hopefully it's not the final form of her song going forward. Wren Sinclair tried to keep the focus on her, but she was overwhelmed by the power and technical offense, and La Primera sealed the win with a package backbreaker. Post-match, Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade attacked Vaquer until Julia made the save, and the new stars sent Jade and Perez packing before Vaquer issued a tag match challenge for Halloween Havoc. This was a fairly one-sided battle, but Sinclair did her part to make La Primera look dangerous in a fun showcase of what makes Vaquer one of the best women in wrestling today. We'll see much more of her in the coming months, with the next big hurdle apparently being a tag team match at Halloween Havoc. A fatal four-way match for the NXT Women's title would have been interesting for the premium live event, but this does protect the future challengers without giving them a loss. Backstage, Kalani Jordan told Trick Williams that she would face whoever Ava picked as her next challenger, and Fatal Influence was seen heading to Ava's office. Ava confirmed the tag match for Halloween Havoc before Fatal Influence demanded a shot at the NXT Women's North American Championship. Ava agreed if the group agreed to fight Julia and Vaquer next week, and it'll be interesting to see which faction member gets a shot at Kalani Jordan's title. In the climax of a #1 Contenders triple threat, Javon Evans had Wes Lee out after a springboard corkscrew, but Ethan Page snuck in to stack up the young OG. Post-match, Page called out Trick Williams to spin the Halloween Havoc wheel, and after it was determined that they'll face off in a Devil's Playground match, Page blasted the champ with his title. No other match came close to matching this main event, and on a night with a lot of storyline build, this was all action as the three men were flying, especially Evans. After a loss in the biggest match of his career last week, this match was all Evans, who looked like a world beater with the NXT faithful fully behind him. Wes Lee seemed like the obvious choice, but NXT will revisit Trick vs. Page one more time, hoping that the Devil's Playground can bring them their best match. With limited time before Halloween Havoc, this was for the best and allows Lee and Evans more time to build a feud with Trick down the line. The rushed end of the night would have been worse if Trick and Page did not have so much history already established, but the pair will have plenty to reference ahead of their rematch. During Javon Evans' match with Randy Orton last week, the pair didn't quite hit an RKO, and while Orton could be heard consoling Evans after the match, many have bashed the young OG. On his Hall of Fame podcast, Booker T took aim at those quick to judge Evans over the botched spot, as he said, "People giving this kid hate, as talented as he is, they wish they could go out there and do what he does. It's easy to have Twitter fingers and talk about somebody when you're at home sitting on your sofa with a bag of chips and some donuts and a gallon of milk. It's easy to do that." Booker added that a young NXT star shouldn't be criticized for what was a high-pressure moment in the ring, especially given the intensity of facing someone like Orton. It has been reported that Orton and Evans rehearsed meticulously and that there was no heat backstage directed at Javon for the RKO mishap. This supports Booker's point that these moments are normal as part of a live performance, and despite this hiccup, the match delivered thrills for the crowd in Orton's home state. Evans landed a cutter on Orton after several failed attempts, but Orton got the win with the RKO, which may not have gone perfectly, but fans were still thrilled to see the hometown hero. What do you think about Booker T's defense of Javon Evans? Was the criticism unwarranted? Share your feedback in the comments section below. On last week's SmackDown, Kevin Owens assaulted Randy Orton, but it wasn't until security footage was shared by Sports Illustrated that fans saw the full extent of the attack. In a video shared to Twitter this week, Owens broke his silence, saying that while he tried to share his side of things, WWE has refused him the opportunity. Owens pointed out that he was banned from last week's SmackDown and claims a video explanation was sent to Raw this week but was not aired. Owens, wearing an RKO shirt no less, said he's giving WWE until Friday to share the video, and if they don't do it on SmackDown, then he'll post the video on Twitter for fans to see. This WWE has already been presented differently than others we've seen, and this could be a sign of how this feud will be presented en route to an important event. During Wrestling Observer Radio, it was stated that this feud could take center stage at Saturday night's main event, and that WWE is looking to deliver a shoot-style presentation. With that in mind, fans can expect a more intense and gritty affair than typical WWE storylines ahead of a showdown that'll be part of WWE's quarterly programming with NBC. Saturday night's main event will take place on December 14th, giving the pair months to build this feud, and we'll have to see how this shoot-style presentation unfolds in this personal rivalry. Since arriving in WWE, Logan Paul has faced top names such as Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Rey Mysterio, but now the Maverick has his sights set on a fresh face on the roster. While speaking on the Impulsive podcast, Logan Paul made it clear that he has his sights set on facing Jacob Fatu in WWE, acknowledging Fatu as a rising star and standout talent. Paul added that he doesn't know when the match will happen, but he's confident that when they do face off, it'll be an intense contest. He said, "Very clear rising star. He's one of the only guys who really stands out to me, and I think everyone else sees it. And while I recognize his greatness, part of me also thinks he's on my list. Yeah, and I'll be wrestling him in the near future, and we're going to be going at it. So I sort of see him as the competition. I promise you, we're gonna go f***ing crazy. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but dude, it's inevitable." Paul has also said he plans on changing his WWE schedule next year to have a more active role, making a match with Fatu a genuine possibility in 2025. With their very different styles, fans would love to see the pair face off in singles competition, and don't be surprised if that happens at some point next year. We've got some sad news to report now, as the wrestling world is mourning the loss of Joe Koff, the former chief operating officer of Ring of Honor, who has passed away at the age of 73. Koff had been COO during the Sinclair broadcast group era and played a pivotal role in ROH's growth and influence within the wrestling industry. According to PW Insider, Koff had been privately battling cancer for some time, and in August, he decided to discontinue treatment and focus on enhancing the quality of the time he had left with his family. Koff was instrumental in convincing Sinclair Broadcast Group to acquire Ring of Honor when it was still an independent promotion, and became the COO in September 2011. Under his watch, ROH expanded and secured weekly TV broadcasts through Sinclair's network of channels across the US, resulting in becoming the second largest promotion in the US. One of the most significant achievements of his tenure was the 2019 joint show with New Japan Pro Wrestling at Madison Square Garden, a landmark event in ROH's history. After all, no other wrestling company had dared to try and make their mark in WWE's old stomping ground, and to date, this remains the only non-WWE event in the Garden in decades. During his time at ROH, stars like Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks gained prominence, and Koff also supported their independent All-In pay-per-view, a precursor to AEW. Koff also navigated ROH through challenging periods, as the launch of AEW led to a loss of key talent from the company, and was also in charge when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. This resulted in ROH producing shows in empty arenas, and despite his efforts, ROH struggled financially after the pandemic. It was in 2022 that Koff sold ROH and its tape library to Tony Khan, but he remained an active follower of wrestling, as he'd been a fan long before he joined the promotion. On social media, several names, including Cody Rhodes, Joe Hendry, Adam Pearce, and others have shared their condolences, and our thoughts are with Koff's family at this sad time. Before the first ever gentlemen's duel match, the full rules were established, including some complicated tricks to avoid attacking a downed opponent. While both men struggled with rules at times, a final sequence of pin attempts ended with King's impressive double leg trap bridging pin that sealed the win. Adding unique rules to a match can often be difficult for fans, but King and Mensah did well establishing the pitfalls to avoid in this contest. Once that was established, the two mostly rolled, though it felt like they ran out of steam near the end, and while it was verging on great early on, the match fell to just good by the ending. King winning was a surprise, but he's clearly committed to evolving into a babyface, which could be what he needs to finally shoot him up the card. On commentary, Vic Joseph said that Lexis King's conversation with CM Punk 2 weeks ago brought about this massive change in him, but NXT should not overlook Mensah in all this. Oro has lost the popularity he gained feuding with Ethan Page, a real shame given how talented he is and how he repeatedly delivers in the ring. The gentleman's duel may not be a stipulation that NXT can pull out consistently, but it is worth considering at the right time for certain opponents, as it gives the chance for a grounded contest. For some, containing competitors in the ring can be what's needed, especially if a high flyer is forced to evolve their strategy for the rules. But what did you think of this match and King's supposed face turn? Is he being genuine, or is it just a matter of time before he's a fully fledged heel again? Currently, WWE programming is available on various platforms, and in the US, premium live events can be found as part of Peacock. In 2025, US fans will continue to use Peacock, but fans in the UK and other international markets will have a different experience thanks to WWE's move to Netflix. A YouTube video from The Great One provided a first look at how WWE content might appear on Netflix, and while no content is available yet, Netflix already has a WWE dedicated page. In addition to PLEs, fans outside the US will get SmackDown, Raw, and NXT on Netflix, in a huge change for NXT fans in particular, who often rely on VPNs to access live programming. Now they'll have WWE content integrated into their Netflix subscription without the need for workarounds, but there's still a question as to how WWE will handle its library of older content. Some have speculated that the WWE Network servers will continue to host the data, with Netflix simply serving as the streaming platform for new events, though that remains unconfirmed. What's promised, though, is a more streamlined experience for international viewers, offering a simplified way to access both live shows and archived material. Fans will be watching closely to see how smoothly the transition unfolds, as it represents a major shift in WWE's global distribution strategy and a bold new direction for the company. What do you think of this first look at WWE on Netflix? Are you excited for the move? Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. NXT highlighted Nikkita Lyons' story and recovery in a pre-match video package before she was back in action this week against Lola Vice. While this was Lyons' first match back on TV, as we reported last week, her return match was at the September 27th live event, where she was on the winning end of a mixed tag match. Lyons also got the win this week, and while it feels like a lifetime ago that Lyons was near the top of NXT's women's division, it's honestly impressive she's been able to return in 2024 at all. After all, a pair of ACL tears in early 2023 and early 2024 could have easily kept her out of action for longer, but in her absence, NXT's women's division has significantly improved in terms of depth. Lyons is no longer an obvious title contender in the way she was when she last worked consistently, and it was a big challenge to put her up against Vice, a made woman in NXT. Perhaps that's why Lyons picked up what should be considered a major upset, even with the interference from Jada Parker, who blasted Vice with the Hypnotic. Vice did the heavy lifting, but the two had solid chemistry that carried them through, and while Lyons has work to do to get back to full speed, she looked better than expected. Lash legend and Jakara Jackson laid out a challenge to Damage Control for next week in the continuation of a showcase for the Meta-4 members. After challenging for the women's tag titles on SmackDown and being around for a title match on Raw, it's clear that WWE's creative team have their eyes on Legend and Jackson. Stepping in the ring with names from Damage Control will only do the pair favors, and we can't count out these two being the first NXT tag team to hold the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. Byron Saxton interviewed Tatum Paxley in her dollhouse, and while the interview was interrupted by Jada Parker, eagle-eyed fans spotted Wendy Choo in the background stalking Paxley. Riley Osborne brought the most fight of any match of his against Ridge Holland, but was overwhelmed and lost after Holland hit the Redeemer. Andre Chase arrived to save Osborne from a Redeemer on the announce table and knocked Holland out of the ring, and this was the best Osborne has looked. It's a shame he and Holland, who have obvious chemistry, didn't have more time, but this went from a fun brawl to a squash quickly and made clear Holland is on a different level. It would have been disappointing if Chase didn't make a return to show he is a motivated threat that could topple Holland, and Thea Hale was very happy to see Chase back. After a shaky start, Holland has taken to his role as a heel, and with NXT committing to him as a dominant monster, it feels like he should be in the NXT title picture if Chase can't beat him, potentially at Halloween Havoc. Ashanti Adonis apologized to Brinley Reese with a rose for costing her a match with Wendy Choo and Rosemary last month, but Shawn Spears and Brooks Jensen interrupted to destroy the rose. Carmen Petrovich picked up the destroyed rose, and while Adonis ignored her backstage, he seemed to finally notice her during his match. That match saw Jensen defeat Adonis in what was more of an angle than a match, but the right man won, and it gave fans something to invest in going forward. Another vignette for Delta clearly showed the Australian signing, throwing a fireball at the NXT logo, with fans excited to see what she does when she arrives in the silver brand. Each year, PWI releases its rankings of the top 250 women in wrestling, and this year, the rankings have proven to be well and truly timeless. Toni Storm has taken the #1 spot in the rankings, beating TNA Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace at #2, while WWE's own mommy, Rhea Ripley, took the bronze. Stardom's Micah is at #4, while NXT's newest arrival, Stephanie Vaquer, takes 5th place thanks to her efforts as part of CMLL. These rankings always spark debate, and do you think Storm is worthy of the #1 spot, or should another woman get the gold medal? Let us know if so down below.